What If, Episode 1, The Fingerpoke of Doom. This was one of the most controversial angles in wrestling history, and what many consider to be the beginning of WCW's creative downfall. So what if the Fingerpoke of Doom never happened, and WCW went into a completely new direction in early 1999? Let's find out. So we are live in Atlanta, Georgia. Over 40,000 WCW fans packing the Georgia Dome, ready to see Nash versus Goldberg 2. But much like our timeline, as the show progresses, as Nitro continues, none other than Hollywood Hogan slithers in the door, and he sets up Bill Goldberg to be falsely arrested for allegedly stalking Miss Elizabeth. And since Bill Goldberg is otherwise indisposed and unavailable, WCW President Ric Flair agrees to a Nash versus Hogan main event. But unlike our timeline, this main event actually happens. Hogan, the challenger, introduced first. He arrives in all black. Nash, the champion, introduced second, comes to the ring in his traditional black, red, and white attire. Nash enters the ring, throws up the Wolfpack click hand signal, and eventually Hogan and Nash stare each other down as referee Scott Dickinson explains that this match is for the WCW Heavyweight Championship of the world. The bell rings, and surprisingly, Hollywood Hogan takes the initiative, landing a flurry of overhand right punches straight into the face of Nash. Our referee for the evening, Scott Dickinson, orders Hogan to stop with the closed fist punches. Nash, visibly stunned by the offensive flurry of Hogan, is the beneficiary of a 5 count by Dickinson. And this 5 count provides Nash the breathing room he needs because as Hogan enters closer to Nash again to begin another flurry of punches, Nash kicks Hogan right in the gut, pushing Hollywood into the corner where Nash begins his patented series of elbows to the neck. And as Big Sexy lands elbow after elbow, we see Hogan being visibly ground down in that corner. So much so that Nash goes for the boot to the neck, pinning Hogan in the corner, wearing him out. And now we see referee Dickinson giving Nash the 5 count to break the hold in the corner. Right around 5, Nash indeed breaks the hold. We see Hogan begin to slump down in that corner. Nash turns his back on Hogan, gives the click hand signal to the crowd, and we see and hear the vast majority of the 40,000 strong in the Georgia Dome cheer and clap for Kevin Nash. Now as Nash turns around and approaches Hogan once again, we see something interesting. Hollywood has been playing possum in the corner. He was hurt certainly, but not hurt nearly as bad as he was letting on. And with a surprise burst of energy, Hollywood Hulk Hogan gives Nash a finger poke to the eyes, temporarily blinding the big man. And as Nash grabs his eyes in pain, we see Hulk Hogan's strategy start to unfold, because he then gets behind Nash and begins kicking him in the back of the knees. 1, 2, 3, 4 big boots to the back of Nash's right knee, and we see the big man start to get wobbly. Hogan, taking advantage of Nash being completely disoriented, decides to launch himself off the ropes and deliver one more mega shot to the back of Nash's right knee. And this sends the big man down on the mat to his knees. At which point, Hogan propels himself off the ropes one more time and delivers a big boot to the face of Nash, which sends the big man down on his back. And much to the crowd's ire, Hollywood Hulk Hogan stands in the ring and flexes for the crowd, drawing all sorts of jeers and boos from the faithful in Atlanta. And after about 15 to 20 seconds of this preening for the crowd, we see Nash begin to regain his eyesight and begin to lift himself up off the mat. And Hollywood, seeing his opportunity, runs up to Nash just as he is almost to his feet, uses his momentum against him, picks up Big Sexy, and body slams him down to the mat. And much to everyone's surprise, then goes for and lands the leg drop. Now immediately, Hogan gets up and flexes, standing over the fallen Nash. And the NWO black and white fans in the crowd are loving it. Unfortunately though, and as the announcers point out, Hogan is wasting precious time. And as if suddenly realizing this, Hollywood jumps on top of Nash in an attempt to end the match right there. But Nash kicks out right before 3. And Hollywood is stunned. And immediately that shock turns to anger. Hogan gets up and starts confronting referee Dickinson and says, "That was a 1, 2, 3. Just do your job, you idiot. Just count 1, 2, 3. Scott Dickinson, though, is having none of it, and he tells Hogan to focus on the match and not the referee. So Hogan responds by launching himself backwards into the ropes, attempting to hit another leg drop, but this time he misses because Nash sits up. Hogan, jamming his hip with the missed leg drop attempt, is a little bit dazed. He's a little bit stunned, giving Nash the extra time to recover, and both men get to their feet at roughly the same time. And as both men have fully risen, Hogan attempts to throw a quick punch at Nash, but Big Kev blocks it and responds by landing a punch of his own squarely in Hogan's face. A stunned Hogan then gets sent into the ropes by Nash, who delivers a monstrous clothesline, a clothesline that takes Hogan off his feet. Big Kev picks up Hollywood and pushes him into the corner face first, where Nash commences to give Hollywood a series of kidney punches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Big Sexy then picks up a dazed Hogan and gives Hollywood the sidewalk slam. And then Nash goes for the win, but Hogan kicks out at 2. Everyone in the arena can feel the momentum shift, but they also are well aware it's going to take more than that to defeat Hollywood Hogan. And we start to see shades, echoes of Hogan beginning to hulk up as both men get up to their feet at the same time. And just when the audience is asking themselves, is this a return to classic Hulk Hogan? Is he going to hulk up and win the match? Out runs the Disciple. The Disciple hops onto the apron outside the ropes and screams and points at Kevin Nash. And while Nash and referee Dickinson are distracted by the Disciple, the camera cuts to Hogan loading up some brass knuckles he had hidden in his tights. Nash, tiring of the Disciple and not trusting him one bit, handles the situation quickly by punching the Disciple in the face, knocking him off the ring. And as Nash begins to turn around to face Hogan, Hollywood is getting ready to throw a hard punch with those brass knuckles. Unfortunately for him, Kevin Nash senses the punch coming and ducks. He ducks on instinct, causing Hollywood to miss wildly. Nash responds with a counter punch, which sends Hogan flailing, and off fly the brass knuckles. Nash then quickly sends Hogan back into the ropes and delivers his classic big boot to Hollywood's face. And at this point, everyone in the audience can sense what is coming. Nash quickly gathers up Hogan, lifts him high in the air, and delivers a devastating jackknife powerbomb. And with 90% of the Georgia Dome crowd counting along, Nash pins Hogan for the 1, 2, 3. The crowd goes wild, and on cue, here comes the NWO Black and White. And for the next 30 seconds or so, they stomp a mud hole in Nash until the Wolfpack shows up. We see the Wolfpack running down the aisles. They hit the ring and they start doing some damage against Team Hollywood, but they're still roughly outnumbered by about 2-1. And just as things really start to seem hopeless for the Wolfpack, we see Diamond Dallas Page running down the aisle. He hits the ring and immediately goes for Scott Steiner. DDP and Big Papa Pump begin brawling outside of the ring, eventually making their way into the stands to continue their fight. While this is happening, Team Hollywood and the Wolfpack continue to mix it up in the ring. Almost immediately after DDP and Steiner go to the stands, Rick Steiner then comes to the ring. He singles out Buff Bagwell. They take their fight outside of the ring, onto the mats outside of the squared circle. And as this is occurring, the cameras cut back to the parking lot area, and who else but Bill Goldberg arrives, fresh from the police station. He begins running into the building. Now the cameras follow Bill Goldberg as he makes his way into the arena proper. And as Goldberg hits the aisle running, we see that it is complete pandemonium out there. Now everyone in WCW who has a beef with someone else is out there brawling. We've got Jericho and Saturn brawling in the aisle. Chavo Guerrero and Norman Smiley are out there. The Luchadors are out there. Everybody seems to be brawling. It is a complete pandemonium on Nitro. So much so that as we cut back to the ring, we see that there are only 3 people left. The Giant, Hogan, and Nash. And at this point, the Giant and Hogan are double teaming Nash. They are kicking the living crap out of Big Sexy. All of that changes though, as Bill Goldberg runs and slides into the ring. Because immediately after hitting the ring, Goldberg peels Hogan away from Nash, whips him into the ropes, and delivers a vicious spear to Hollywood Hogan. At which point, Hogan rolls out of the ring. While this is happening simultaneously, Nash delivers a clothesline to the Giant, sending him out of the ring. And both men back up slowly until they bump into one another. And then here we have it, the big face-off of Nash and Goldberg, right as Nitro goes off the air. The aftermath. This Nitro was hellaciously good, and it sets the tone for WCW in 1999. And one of the ways in which it does that is we set up our first pay-per-view of the year, WCW NWO Sold Out, on January 17th. And we've got the main event ready to go. We've got Nash Goldberg 2, There Must Be a Winner. This match is red hot. The momentum for this main event is beyond red hot. So to have the return match finally on the next pay-per-view at Sold Out is huge. This Nitro brought a ton of momentum to that pay-per-view. And finally, maybe for the first time ever, there's a big reason to buy the Sold Out pay-per-view. Now, Sold Out is made even more interesting because the Nitro during the following week on January 11th sees a couple of key events. Number one, Hollywood Hogan attacks Nash's right knee with a baseball bat. It's not a season-ending injury at all, but it does weaken Nash for the pay-per-view and actually contributes to Nash's defeat to Goldberg at Sold Out. Because during Sold Out, Nash has the advantage. He gets Goldberg up for the jackknife powerbomb, but that injured right knee gives out on Big Kev, allowing Goldberg to hit the spear, the jackhammer, and the win to get the title back. A second portion of the aftermath is the NWO Civil War. This is something that had been brewing since 1998, and it is time to bring this to a head. So at Uncensored 1999, we have the culmination of the NWO Civil War. And that culmination takes the form of a 6-man tag match where the loser has to disband. So at Uncensored 99, our tag match consists of Hall, Nash, and Luger for the Wolfpack, and Kurt Hennig, Scott Steiner, and Hulk Hogan for NWO Black and White. And the rules are simple. The first team that takes the pinfall loses their faction. And there's also a lot of attempted interference throughout the main event, which culminates with the Macho Man Randy Savage reappearing to come in to the match ostensibly to defend the Wolfpack. Of course, Savage was last affiliated with the Wolfpack before his injury. He comes back, though, and betrays the Wolfpack by low-blowing Kevin Nash. Ultimately, this is not enough to secure the win for Team Hollywood because Scott Hall ends up pinning Kurt Hennig in all the confusion, and NWO Hollywood must disband, which leads the Wolfpack as the only remaining faction that can use the NWO name. So this culminates the NWO Civil War. We finally get the payoff we've been waiting for on that front, but it also does something else that's very important. It protects Hulk Hogan. It eliminates his faction, but it makes Hollywood Hogan more dangerous than ever. And on the following Nitro, after Uncensored 99, he comes out and says everyone in the NWO was a failure and a disappointment, and there's only one person I can depend on aside from myself, and that is the Macho Man Randy Savage. Savage comes out, they reform the Megapowers, the evil Megapowers, and their main focus throughout the bulk of 99 is to cause as much chaos and craziness as possible. And of course, with the Macho Man involved, things can never get too crazy because the crazier the character gets, the better he gets. What this also does is it gets Hogan out of the world title picture and it puts him and Savage into the World Tag Team Championship picture. So we have a completely different area of focus for both Hogan and Savage in 99. It's highly entertaining because neither of them are the cowardly heels we've seen in the NWO. Both of them revert to a much more crazy, maniacal, and dangerous form of themselves. And so the evil Megapowers ride high and get crazier and crazier throughout the bulk of 1999. And the third big accomplishment after this first Nitro of 99 is we have a revamped and refreshed heavyweight division. So in addition to Goldberg and Nash, we also have stars like Bret Hart, like Booker T, Raven, Bam Bam Bigelow, Scott Hall, Sid Vicious, Lex Luger, and yes, Sting whenever he chooses to return. All of these individuals are going to be in a revamped and refreshed heavyweight division, which will keep things fresh and interesting and new throughout 1999. So this first Nitro has done many things. Number one, it's just an impressive show in and of itself. It really calls back those Nitros from 96 and 97 where you never knew exactly what was going to happen, but you knew it was going to be good. And that's what this first Nitro of the year from Atlanta does. It reestablishes that winning formula for WCW. In addition to that, we also get our first big pay-per-view of the year right at the heels of this. The sold-out pay-per-view features Nash and Goldberg 2. There must be a winner, and Goldberg is that winner. He wins the match cleanly, although Nash does have a little asterisk there because his knee injury was caused by Hollywood Hogan. That leads to a final settlement of the NWO Civil War with WCW Uncensored in March of 99. The Wolfpack prevails. This dissolves NWO Black and White, but it also creates the evil Megapowers because we see Hogan and Savage team up again, this time in truly evil form, and they cause absolute chaos throughout WCW in 1999 and compete for the tag team titles as well. And the third thing this Nitro accomplishes is we give the WCW heavyweight division a facelift. A lot of new stars coming in, a reshuffling of the deck, a refreshening of WCW for 1999, with new faces in the mix, such as Booker T, such as Raven, such as Sid Vicious. 99 promises to be a very exciting year for WCW. Now, if you enjoyed this episode, like the video, subscribe to my channel, and share it with your friends. WCW was such a special part of my life. I really enjoyed the opportunity to remake WCW 1999, starting with the Fingerpoke of Doom. Thank you so much for joining me on this ride. I look forward to the next episode of What If. Until then, this is Kevin Newsom saying thank you, God bless you, and I'll talk to you later.